Live from our nation's capital, it's Deadline DC with Brad Bannon.
Hi, it's Deadline DC with Brad Bannon. Every week on Deadline DC, we cut through the chaos and clutter of Trump 2.0 to bring you a clear picture of the future of America. I'm Brad Bannon. I'm the host of Deadline DC with Brad Bannon. I'm a national Democratic and progressive strategist. I'm a political analyst for News Radio KNX 93.7 FM in Los Angeles and a weekly columnist for The Hill in Washington, D.C. If you want to read my columns in The Hill, to check out my opinion on the latest Trump abuses, you can read them at thehill.com, at muckrack.com/Brad Bannon. Every week on Deadline DC, I talk to the people and players behind the politics and policies that guide our great nation forward, or at least keep it from going backwards during Trump 2.0. This Monday on Deadline DC, we have a great show for you. In the first half hour, our guest is Cristina Jimenez from Shared Future, and to talk about the Battle of Minneapolis and the Trump immigration abuses. Then in the second half hour, Tara Devlin, the host of the Terror Buster Report podcast, joins us to review the first year of the second Trump term. Before we go to our first guest, though, we're going to play this clip, which is the Democratic minority leader in the House, Hakeem Jeffries, discussing the future of Kristi Noem.
I did reiterate in my conversation with Speaker Johnson that we intend to proceed with impeachment proceedings if Kristi Noem is not fired. Kristi Noem is a complete and total embarrassment. She's a disgrace. And on top of all of that, she's presided over the cold-blooded killings of American citizens, like Renee Nicole Good and Alex Preddy. Unacceptable. She should have never been confirmed. Shame on every Republican in the Senate who put this wildly unqualified person into a position of significance in the Department of Homeland Security so she could unleash brutalization on everyday Americans, American citizens, and law-abiding immigrant families. It's disgraceful. She's got to go.
That was the House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, talking about the future or lack thereof of Kristi Noem, the Secretary of Homeland Security. Our guest in this half hour is Cristina Jimenez. She is the Director of Shared Future. Cristina brings over 2 decades of experience in building social justice movements and winning change. An award-winning organizer, best-selling author, and co-founder and former executive director of the United We Dream Network, Cristina brings her own immigrant experience along with critical know-how in leading for change. Cristina, welcome to Deadline DC with Brad Bannon. I know must be a busy time for you, so I'm very thankful you were able to join us today. First, before we go any further, could you react to what Hakeem Jeffries just said?
Great to be here, Brad. I could not agree more. I think absolutely everyone involved in the terrorizing that ICE is conducting across the country, the killings by ICE agents, need to be held accountable. And of course, we want the secretary to resign or to be taken out of her role, clearly. And I also want us, and we need to be vigilant, that we can also not just be fooled by a removal of the secretary. of DHS, because we really don't know if that move, though, holding her accountable, will be sufficient to completely end what's happening in Minneapolis and across the country. Because we, don't know what Holman will do. We don't know how people in DHS and ICE agents, we know that they're a rogue agency. So, is it really going to change? So I think that the demand around Noem, absolutely, we all need to keep pushing for that. But more than that, we need accountability for all involved, and we need this to end.
Okay, well, let me go ask you to talk more about that. What would significantly change the situation? I agree with you. I think if Nome was canned or fired, or removed from office, uh, they would put someone else in her place who may be marginally better because they might have to get the votes of Murkowski and Collins in the Senate to approve a new secretary. But it's still going to be a problem. So what needs to be done to eliminate this horrible situation where families are being separated, uh, people are being killed? What has to be done? What would Congress is going to vote on a bill Tuesday. Uh, and what needs to be done to deal with this problem?
Brett, one of the things that I will say as I answer this question is we have to take a stock of this moment. The terrain on this conversation has completely shifted since the two killings of US citizens by ICE in Minneapolis. That's happened in the last couple of weeks. And what you're seeing across the country and the polling, over 58% of Americans, regardless of party affiliation, believe that the administration's policy on immigration, and particularly ICE and deportations, have gone way too far. And they want this to end. So I think that public opinion has gotten us to have a completely different level of conversation than when DHS funding was discussed in the House in the first vote that just happened a couple of weeks ago. And now look where Democrats are at. That's because of the pressure of the American public on wanting this to completely change. So now you hear Democrats not only calling for resignations, but also for the accountability of agents. And there's much more that can be done. A couple of examples. The agents involved in all of these operations that have created terror and killed people, including people in Chicago that we should not forget, need to be held accountable. And they should not be able to serve in any duty or role of law enforcement across the country. Number two, it should just be illegal to go after people based on their color of skin, on the language that they speak, and on the work that they do. Three, ICE agents should be required to have judicial warrants, not administrative warrants of an administration that we cannot trust and that keeps lying to the American people. So I'm just sharing some examples in which ICE can be completely reined in. And ultimately, Brad, we are not going to solve this only by focusing on ICE. It is an important conversation and changes that we have to do in this moment. But, ultimately, we need Congress to be serious about pathways that will allow people, immigrants in this country, to have legal status and to be able to live without the fear that ICE could go after them.
Okay, you said that Minneapolis, the tragedy in Minneapolis, well, put it in my words, was a turning point. And you're right, it did significantly change public opinion on the issue. As you said, about 6 out of every 10 Americans think ICE has gone too far. And so the question to me is, do you think it will really serve as a turning point and we will get significant reforms in ICE as a result of these tragedies?
I believe that is up to us, up to the American public, and we're seeing the results. We see how we shifted the conversation as the funding conversations moved to the Senate. We saw how these really pushed Democrats, by the way, who were not really in this posture before Minneapolis. Now look at the posture that they are in, demanding for more accountability, oversight, and now wanting to fund ICE anymore. They already have a lot of resources that they're using to go after communities. So I believe that it's
Cristina,
up
I'm
to
going to
us.
have to rudely interrupt you at this point, so we can give our radio listeners a little vacation, 4-minute vacation. We'll continue this interview with our viewers right after this very short break. Welcome back to Deadline DC with Brad Bannon. Our guest in this half hour is Cristina Jimenez, who is the director of Shared Future. Cristina, let me ask you this. Tell us about your story. How did you become involved in this very important issue?
Brad, I am doing the work that I do because I'm an immigrant myself. I grew up in this country undocumented. I came like many immigrants throughout our history, seeking a better life from Ecuador. My parents were fleeing poverty and political um, violence in Ecuador in the 1990s. And I grew up undocumented in New York, living and experiencing firsthand what it's like to live with the fear of deportation, or that I will lose my parents to deportation when they went to work, or that I could be deported at any moment and at any point. And so growing up with that fear, especially after 9/11, led me to connect with other communities that were experiencing the same. And when I started to see deportations happening after 9/11 in our community, I then got to know that there were people in our communities fighting against these deportations and becoming part of efforts with organizations, with labor unions, with faith leaders, with business leaders that were stopping deportations, unjust deportations of people like myself and my family. I realized that we, as people in this country and as everyday Americans, have the power, if we organize, if we take action together, to stop injustice and to create change. And stopping a deportation at a young age was what taught me what it's like if we take action together, and how we can build power to be able to create change in our communities. And that led me to be part of the immigrant youth movement, leading United We Dream and leading multiple campaigns nationally and locally to advance the rights and justice for immigrants, including winning the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program that protected over 600,000 people from deportation under the Obama administration.
Let me ask you this question. Was looking at U.S. Census statistics a couple of weeks ago, and back in the 1970s, I think it was 75% of Americans identified themselves as white. In the 2020 census, that percentage was down to 58% of Americans identifying themselves as white. I've always felt that this surge in anti-immigrant hostility is a lot of it is racial. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I completely believe it's racialized, but it also has to do, Brad, with the promise of this country and the contention and the fight that we have around this promise. The promise of this country is to be a multiracial democracy where everyone gets to be protected under the law, where everyone gets to have freedom and be able to thrive and participate in this democracy.
Yeah,
And
I think
we
you're
know.
absolutely right, Christina. Unfortunately, I have to interrupt you again so we can bring back our radio listeners. We'll be back with more of Deadline DC right after this break. Welcome back to Deadline DC with Brad Bannon. We're talking about immigration in this half hour. Our guest is Cristina Jimenez, who is the director of Shared Future. Cristina, I want to ask you this question. What was it like growing up? And because a lot of families are facing this situation right now, and I don't know how they cope with it. What was it like growing up and, knowing that there could be a knock on your door anytime and you could be deported, your family members could be deported? What was that like?
Brad, that is the experience that many communities are having right now. Many people, whether they have immigration status or not. And I grew up undocumented, living with that fear that ICE could show up to our door, that my parents will go to work and they could get deported or detained, that I could get deported or detained. So you are afraid and living in the shadows and in hiding. You can't share what you're experiencing. You can't. Ask for help if you have abuse in the workplace. Like my parents were exploited in the workplace, I was exploited in the workplace, and we could never say anything about it. It also meant that we were afraid of doing things like traveling across the state or the city, or even going to work every day, or going to school, or applying to college. And I remember being told by my counselor that I couldn't go to college, even though I had done everything to be a strong college candidate, that I couldn't go to college because of my undocumented status. And now the experience that people have is even more heightened by the way that this administration is deploying ICE and agents who are masks, who have no accountability for what they're doing, terrorizing people because of the way that they look, because they may look like me, because they may speak another language. And quite frankly, regardless of immigration status, like we know the reports across communities where Native Americans have been targeted by ICE, where African Americans have been targeted by ICE, where Latinos and Latinas who are US citizens and have been here for 4 or 5 generations are being targeted by ICE.
Now, this betrays my age. But when George W. Bush was president, he proposed an immigration package, and I think it went something like this. First of all, there would add billions of dollars to border security. Two, it would crack down on businesses who employ immigrants. And three, it would open a path to citizenship for the dreamers who were born in this country but were in danger of being deported anyway. And I believe 6 Republican senators opposed it, which is the reason it didn't become law. And then Barack Obama basically, during his presidency, proposed the same thing, which is mainly every Republican in the Senate voted against. How did we get from there, where we were seriously considering, giving legal citizenship to the dreamers, to where we're killing people in Minneapolis who are protesting the immigration administration's immigration policies?
Unfortunately, Brad, this is a story where we have to be really sober and honest about how we got here. And the truth is that Republicans have blocked every single effort along the way, from the Bush years to the Obama years to even now. They have opposed every single opportunity to actually deliver a solution to the fact that there are undocumented people here, and that we have to really grapple with our need for immigrant labor, and at the same time not having the kind of legal system in place to be able to bring the labor that we need in to address the economic needs of the country, while also honoring the rights of workers and the rights of American workers as well. So, so the truth is that it goes on Republicans, but also it goes to Democrats, who, along with Republicans over the years, became overly only focused on enforcement and not on the pathways that we needed. So this is why you see ICE becoming the largest law enforcement agency in comparison to all of our federal agencies, the FBI, the CIA combined. They have the largest budget. This all happened because Democrats and Republicans agreed to do that over the years. So, we have gotten here because of the lack of leadership of both parties. And I think that we have to, in this moment, continue to press our members of Congress from both parties about the need for solutions. Republicans cannot be not held accountable, and we cannot leave them off the hook when they're using our money, our tax-paying dollars, to kill people without any accountability, instead of addressing the fact that Americans want to have access to healthcare. Americans are struggling to pay their healthcare, to having access to healthcare, when in reality, people want to address the fact that prices keep going up and our wages are not going up. And those are the economic needs and pains that most Americans want a solution for. They don't want our money to be invested in agents that are killing people and, quite frankly, going after immigrants and non-immigrants alike. And Democrats need to stand up in this moment to provide a real solution, not only for ICE, which is the conversation that we're having right now, but truly, to your point, Brad, what is really the pathways that we need to have in place to reform the system so that the system works for working class Americans and for our economy?
Let me just note that in the big bad budget bill that was passed last year, ICE's funding was tripled. And in the bill that the House passed recently for Homeland Security funding, on top of that tripling of the budget, they're getting $2 billion more on top of that. We've got about a minute left. Could you tell us a little bit about Shared Future?
Well, this is exactly what I was saying, Brad, earlier, to your point. We need our government, our elected officials from both parties, Republicans and Democrats, to really listen to the American people, and that is listening on the economic pains and needs of the people. People are really struggling to make ends meet, and that's what our government should be focusing on, not using our resources to deploy ICE agents against Americans across the country and against immigrants in completely biased and racist ways. So that's why Share Future is a new initiative building the consensus that we need around immigration in a way that really grounds the conversation on the fact that immigrants and non-immigrants want to live in this country, work in this country, take care of their families, and that our economic interests and our futures are linked. And if we focus on the well-being of working class families, which includes immigrants, we believe we can create a broader movement that will support and will be involved in the kind of advocacy and organizing that we need to see legislative solutions in Congress, so that we don't have to be
Cristina, thank you very much. Sadly, we've run out of time. I want to thank you for joining us, and maybe you could come back and give us an update in the near future. We're going to break now, but we'll be back with Tara Devlin, the host of the Tara Buster podcast.